Blade Runner 2049 is a 2017 American epic neo-noir science fiction film directed by Denis Villeneuve from a screenplay by Hampton Fancher and Michael Green, based on a story by Fancher. 1011, a sequel to Blade Runner, 1982, the film stars Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, with Ana de Armas, Sylvia Hoeks, Robin Wright, Mackenzie Davis, Dave Bautista, and Jared Leto in supporting roles. Ford and Edward James Olmos reprised their roles from the previous film as Rick Deckard and Gav, respectively. Gosling plays K, a Blade Runner who uncovers a secret that threatens to destabilize society and the course of civilization. Ideas for a Blade Runner sequel were first proposed in the 1990s, but licensing issues stalled their development. Andrew Kosabe and Broderick Johnson obtained the film rights from Bud Yorkin. Ridley Scott stepped down as the film's initial director and worked as an executive producer, while Villeneuve was later appointed to direct. Blade Runner 2049 was financed through a partnership between Alcon Entertainment and Sony Pictures, as well as a Hungarian government-funded tax rebate. Warner Brothers, which had distributed its predecessor, released the film on behalf of Alcon in North America, while Sony handled distribution in international markets. Principal photography took place mostly at two sound stages in Budapest over 4 months from July to November 2016. Blade Runner 2049 premiered at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles, California on October 3, 2017, and was released in the United States on October 6. The film received acclaim from critics, who praised multiple aspects including cast performances, directing, cinematography, and faithfulness to the previous film. It was a box office disappointment, grossing $277 million worldwide against a production budget of $150 to $185 million and failing to reach its estimated break-even point of $400 million. Among its numerous accolades, Blade Runner 2049 received Academy Awards for Best Cinematography and Best Visual Effects out of 5 nominations, and 8 British Academy Film Awards nominations, winning for Best Cinematography and Best Special Visual Effects. A sequel television series, Blade Runner 2099, is in development at Amazon Studios, with Scott set to return as executive producer. Plot: in 2049 Los Angeles, bioengineered humans known as replicants are still used for slave labor. K, short for serial number, KD6-3.7, a Nexus 9 replicant, works for the Los Angeles Police Department as a Blade Runner, an officer who hunts and retires, kills, rogue replicant models. After retiring, killing, replicant sapper Morton, K finds a box buried under a tree at Morton's farm. It contained the remains of a female replicant who died during a cesarean section. This demonstrates that replicants could reproduce biologically, previously thought impossible. K's superior, Lt. Joshi, or Madam, fears this knowledge will lead to war between humans and replicants, so orders K to retire the replicant child and destroy all related evidence. K visits the Wallace Corporation, successor to the defunct Tyrell Corporation in the manufacture of replicants. DNA archives identify the deceased female as an experimental Nexus 7 replicant. K learns of her romantic ties with former Blade Runner Rick Deckard. A CEO Neander Wallace wants the secret to replicant reproduction to expand interstellar colonization. He sends his replicant enforcer, Love, to monitor K. An unidentified figure engages several prostitutes in the city, including one named Mariette, to keep eyes on K. At Morton's farm, K finds the date June 10, 21 carved into the tree trunk and recognizes it from a childhood memory of a wooden toy horse. Because replicant memories are artificial, K's holographic AI girlfriend Joy suggests that this is evidence that K was born, not created. K discovers in LAPD records that 2 children born on that date have identical DNA, but are inexplicably registered as being opposite genders, and that the girl died from a genetic disorder. K's search for the boy leads him to an orphanage, but the records from the year in question are missing. K recognizes the orphanage from his memories and finds the toy horse in the furnace where he remembers hiding it. He then visits replicant memory maker Dr. Anna Stelline, who confirms that his memory of the orphanage is a real memory that someone lived, leading K to conclude he is the deceased replicant woman's son. K then fails a baseline test, marking him as rogue. When he implies to Joshi that he killed the replicant child, she gives him 48 hours to pass the test, or he will be retired himself. Joy hires prostitute replicant Mariette to sync with to be able to have physical intimacy with K. The following morning, Mariette places a tracker in K's jacket prior to leaving. K then takes the wooden toy horse to be analyzed for its origin, which leads him to the ruins of a now radioactive Las Vegas. There he finds Deckard, who informs him that the deceased replicant woman was named Rachel, and that he is the father of Rachel's child. Deckard had helped the replicant freedom movement scramble the birth records to protect the child's identity. Deckard then left the child with the replicant freedom movement to ensure the hunted child would not be found through him. Love, who has killed Joshi, tracks K to Las Vegas. She kidnaps Deckard, destroys Joy, and leaves an injured K behind. Using Mariette's tracker, the replicant freedom movement rescues K. Their leader, Freyza, reveals that Rachel's child was actually a girl. Fearing that Deckard may give up the freedom movement to Wallace and endanger the child, Freyza urges K to kill him. K deduces that the memory of the toy horse actually belongs to Dr. Stelline, who is Rachel's daughter. Love takes Deckard to meet Wallace, who offers Deckard a duplicate Rachel in exchange for information about the child's whereabouts. Deckard refuses the offer, so Wallace has Love kill the duplicate. As Love transports Deckard to be tortured off-world, K intercedes. He fights and drowns Love but is severely wounded in the process. K tells Deckard that he will be presumed dead, and is now free to go to his daughter, and then takes him to Dr. Stelline's facility. Standing outside the facility, he hands Deckard the toy horse. Deckard enters the building and meets Dr. Stelline, while K lies down on the front steps. B. Cast. See also, List of Blade Runner characters. Ryan Gosling as K. Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard. Ana de Armas as Joy. Sylvia Hoeks as Love. Robin Wright as LT. Joshi. Mackenzie Davis as Mariette. Carla Jury as Dr. Anna Stelline. Lenny James as Mr. Cotton. Dave Bautista as Sapper Morton. Jared Leto as Neander Wallace. Edward James Olmos as Gaff. Barkat Abdi as Doc Badger. Hyam Abbas as Freyza. David Dastmalkian as Coco. Wood Harris as Nandes. Sally Harmson as Replicant. Tomasz Lamarquise as Wallace Corporation File Clerk. Archival footage, audio, and stills of Sean Young from the original film are used to represent both her original character of Rachel and a duplicate of the character created by Neander Wallace. 13 Young's likeness was digitally superimposed onto Lauren Pita, who was coached by Young on how to recreate her performance from the first film. The voice of the replicant was created with the use of a sound-alike actress to Young. 14 Young was credited for her work. Production. Development. Director Denis Villeneuve credits Blade Runner for igniting his passion for filmmaking. From the 1990s, licensing disputes over Philip K. Dick's novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? 1968, had deterred the creation of sequels to the science fiction drama Blade Runner, 1982. 15 Director Ridley Scott conceived two ultimately unrealized projects vaguely connected to the Blade Runner canon in the interim, such as a standalone sequel titled Metropolis. 1617 Scott's second project, a collaboration with his son Luke and younger brother Tony titled Pure Fold, had been imagined as an episodic web series examining conceptions of empathy. 17. Nearly 3 decades after the film's release, Alcon Entertainment co-founders Andrew Kosabe and Broderick Johnson purchased the intellectual property from producer Bud Yorkin. The terms of Alcon's acquisition prohibited the remake of the original Blade Runner film, but entitled the company rights to syndication, franchising, and derivative media such as prequels and sequels. 18 No longer satisfied with the profits of their smaller budget features, and with investor funding scarce, Kosabe and Johnson sought to increase Alcon's output of blockbuster films. If you don't have repetitive cash flow, which is a fancy way of saying being in the sequel business, you are going to be in trouble eventually. 19 Progress on a new Blade Runner feature soon accelerated when Kosabe named Christopher Nolan one of his ideal choices to direct. 20 However, Nolan said he never planned to direct, despite being an admirer of the Blade Runner franchise. 21 By August 2011, Alcon had announced Ridley Scott signing as the film's director to the press. 22 The British filmmaker had long desired a sequel to expand upon the subject matter. 23 After securing Scott's services, the studio assigned Michael Green and a returning Hampton Fancher the responsibility for writing the script. 24-25 Alcon producers provided some insight into their vision but were unsure of how to approach the Blade Runner story. 26-27 Hence they and the normally candid Scott were tight-lipped when questioned further about the sequel's artistic direction in interviews conducted during pre-production. 28-29-30 Ultimately, Scott resigned from his duties once his existing commitment to Alien, Covenant, 2017, took precedence, but retained partial oversight as an executive producer. 23-31 He also made significant contributions to the screenplay, albeit in an uncredited role. 32 Blade Runner 2049 was Alcon's second collaboration with director Denis Villeneuve, whom they called for a meeting at a cafe in rural New Mexico to negotiate an offer. They had an existing professional relationship from Prisoners, 2013. 33 Villeneuve credits Blade Runner for inspiring his passion for filmmaking. 23 But hesitated to accept the assignment at first as he feared tarnishing the franchise's legacy. 33 Nevertheless, he liked the screenplay and was assured by Fancher's investment in the project. 33-34 Villeneuve preserved elements of the original film by modernizing Blade Runner's retro-futuristic on-screen world, which he saw as imperative for an authentic story. 23 A scene from Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One, 2018, set in the Blade Runner universe was excluded from the film's finished cut. Spielberg had sought copyright approval during the filming of Blade Runner 2049, which Alcon producers refused as they feared the explicit reference would affect their commercial prospects, even though Ready Player One was released months later. Consequently, Spielberg opted to replace the scene for one based on The Shining, 1980, owing to his friendship with Stanley Kubrick. 35 Casting: Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford promoting the film at the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con. Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling were Blade Runner 2049's first significant casting choices. 36-37 Gossip about Ford's participation had been circulating in the media since the project's conception, claims which the producers initially denied. 29-30 Having only approached the actor for a part in 2014. 38 Alcon did not publicly announce their signing until the following year. 36 Ford had expressed interest in reprising his role in past interviews and was enthusiastic about the Blade Runner 2049 script. 38-39 The working conditions on set was another aspect of the production. Ford was pleased with 40 in contrast to the stressful shooting environment endured on Blade Runner. 23-41 Ford stated the 35-year passage of time, plus the synthesis of a new story with Deckard's already established backstory, lent context necessary to playing his aged character. 41 Edward James Olmos, the only other returning Blade Runner actor, appears in a supporting part which pivots the main story. 42 The screenwriters tailored case specifically for Gosling. 43 But it was the opportunity to work with Villeneuve and experienced cinematographer Roger Deakins, paired with his faith in the script, that convinced the actor to join Blade Runner 2049 in his first leading role in a blockbuster production. 44-45 Gosling had developed a reputation for his discriminating film choices, The prospect of working on big-budget franchise sets never enticed him. 45 Yet he trusted the filmmaker's instincts, and the thematic complexity of the script further reassured his decision. 46 A longtime Blade Runner fan, the actor remarked that his first viewing experience of the film as a young teenager was profound. It was one of the first films I had seen where it wasn't clear how I was supposed to feel when it was over. It really makes you question your idea of the hero and the villain, the idea of what it means to be human. 23. Blade Runner 2049 proved challenging for Gosling because of the production's scope. 47 Gosling also helped rewrite the dialogue for the baseline test scene, which Villeneuve felt wasn't aggressive enough. Gosling suggested using a variation of the dropping-in technique developed by Shakespeare and Company. 48. An actress of national renown in Spain who aspired to break into English-speaking roles, Ana de Armas auditioned several times before landing the film's female lead. 49 After shooting for her first Hollywood film Hands of Stone, 2016, de Armas settled in Los Angeles in pursuit of a role that did not typecast her ethnicity. She underwent 4 months of rigorous speech training to master her English before auditioning. Once the studio commenced production of Blade Runner 2049, the actress said her fitness training provided the necessary mental space to prepare for the intense shooting schedule. 49. Villeneuve considered David Bowie, one of the franchise's core influences, for the part of Neander Wallace until the musician died months prior to filming. 43 He and the producers subsequently looked at Jared Leto, fresh off filming the DC Extended Universe, DCEU, film Suicide Squad, 2016, as they felt he exuded Bowie's rock star sensibility. 4350 Leto refrains from naming specific sources that shaped certain aspects of his character's persona, rather the actor cites real-life friends who work in tech as a general influence. 51 Notorious for his unorthodox preparation for roles, Leto continued his unusual practices in Blade Runner 2049 by wearing custom opaque contact lenses to work the set completely blind. 52 Villeneuve recalled his first day shooting with the actor. He entered the room, and he could not see at all. He was walking with an assistant very slowly. It was like seeing Jesus walking into a temple. Everybody became super silent, and there was a kind of sacred moment. Everyone was in awe. It was so beautiful and powerful I was moved to tears. 52. A raft of mostly young actors comprise Blade Runner 2049's supporting cast. David Dastmalchian, Sylvia Hoeks, Carla Juri, Mackenzie Davis, and Barkat Abdi were lesser-known stars with years of expertise in independent cinema. 53 Among the few exceptions are Dave Bautista, Hayam Abbas, and Lenny James, whose castings were revealed between April and July 2016. 54 55 56 and Robin Wright, assigned to one of 3 major female roles in Blade Runner 2049. 57 Wright's involvement had been rumored for weeks, but was not immediately confirmed by the filmmakers as her commitments to the Netflix series House of Cards, 2013 to 2018, momentarily stalled negotiations. 57. Filming. The exterior of the Budapest Stock Exchange's Liberty Square Palace, whose interior doubled for Las Vegas in casino set scenes. The filmmakers embarked on location scouting in April 2016. 58, and principal photography of Blade Runner 2049 commenced that July, lasting 4 months until November. 59-60 They first toured London but found no sound stage available for the needs of the production. As a result, Deakins and Villeneuve flew to Hungary for location scouting, partly due to Scott's familiarity with the country's network of facilities. They also toured Slovakia to source architectural ideas. 61 Blade Runner 2049's production crew were mostly Hungarian, with some American staff hired to supervise the set. 61 Inserts with Wright and Hoeks were the first scenes filmed on set. 62 Shooting took place mainly at Korda Studios and the Origo Studios backlit in suburban Budapest. 63 Where the shoot qualified for a 25% tax rebate on in-state costs from the Hungarian government. 64. The Alcon, Sony partnership allocated $180 million, $90 million each, for the budget, rebates notwithstanding. 19 interior shots of the Budapest Stock Exchange's Liberty Square Palace doubled for Las Vegas in casino set scenes 61-65 and abandoned Soviet industrial sites such as the abandoned Enota and Kelenfold power plants were important filming locations that emphasized Blade Runner 2049's dystopian ethos. 1558 The Budapest Palace was the film's largest set, occupying at least 3 floors of the building. 61 filmmakers revised Deckard's capture by Love into a simple conversational scene after Ford conveyed to Kosabe and Johnson his disapproval of the dialogue. 62. Pitfalls occasionally beset the production. The filmmakers frequently fell behind schedule, and an Origo Studios employed subcontractor was killed by falling debris when dismantling one of the sets. 62-66 Gosling's obligation to fulfill a New York City press junket for La La Land, 2016, exacerbated the unusual circumstances of the shoot. However, his scenes were able to be filmed in time for the Thanksgiving holiday. 62. Cinematography. Blade Runner 2049 is the third Denis Villeneuve collaboration after Prisoners and Sicario, 2015. 67 Together with production designer Denis Villeneuve, the men brainstormed ideas for the film's visual palette as Villeneuve was editing his science fiction drama Arrival, 2016. 61 The sequences were then storyboarded and left for Denis and Villeneuve to execute. 61 The two were inspired by the architecture of several global cities to develop a hostile, imposing brutalist style for their fictionalized Los Angeles, among them the appearance of Beijing's cityscape in dense smog, the foothills of southern Spain, Bangladesh's shipyards, and certain mid-20th century landmarks in London, such as the Barbican Estate and Trellick Tower. 68 For Las Vegas set scenes, the filmmakers researched intense dust storms in the Sahara, Saudi Arabia, and Sydney to replicate the sandy desert ruins Villeneuve sought. 68 69 70 It became apparent to Denis that Blade Runner 2049 would be one of his biggest undertakings because of the technical demands involved in realizing the on-screen universe. 68 Denis exercises full artistic control of his shoots, and the extent of his oversight meant a single camera setup for the set. The British cinematographer rejected a studio line producer's request for a 9-unit camera setup because he firmly believed said technique would yield sloppy camera work. 71 Rather, he and Villeneuve reprised the practical approach of their previous collaborations to capture the Blade Runner 2049 scenes. 1561 They shot the project in 1.55:1 aspect ratio from a single Arri Alexa XT studio camera with Zeiss Master Prime lenses, assisted with an attached crane arm or a dolly. 6172 The filmmakers conducted tests with an Alexa 65 camera but preferred the XT Studio's somewhat grainy image quality, and the choice of lenses corresponded to the scale and lighting specifications of the scenes. For example, close-up character scenes were captured in 32mm lenses, but filmmakers captured sweeping cityscape shots with 14mm and 16mm lenses. 15 Occasionally, Arri Alexa mini cameras were used to represent views from the spinners, the vehicles used in the film. 61. Spinner on display at the Peterson Automotive Museum, Los Angeles. When Gassner was first approached for Blade Runner 2049, he was called with a request from Villeneuve to observe the shape of passing street sweepers. The designer had known Scott since 1982, when they first collaborated for the Francis Ford Coppola-directed musical One from the Heart, 1982. 73 Redesigning the spinners then became one of his initial responsibilities. He and the filmmakers envisioned a harsh, angular design for the spinners, one intended to evoke the sense of technological innovation. 73 It was also up to Gassner to complete most of the Blade Runner 2049 set so producers could exercise full artistic control of the shoot. Gassner described the process as especially difficult as design elements had to be distinct but lore-faithful, with everything executed under a tight shooting schedule. 73. Costumes. Costume designer Renee April produced costumes featuring fake fur, painted cotton disguised as shearling, and breathing masks. 74 April initially researched the fashion styles of the 1960s and 1970s, but elected to research various decades for influence as well as both Eastern and Western culture. When discussing the film, she stated she did not consider it a fashionable one. "I made costumes for the dark, wet, polluted, miserable world that Denis Villeneuve created. I had to hold myself back and remove anything too avant-garde or outre because it did not help the story. There were no superhero suits because the world needed to be realistic, and the characters relatable." 75. When April discussed the film with Villeneuve about what direction she should take the costumes, Villeneuve told her brutal, a similar description he gave to Gosling. "So I took it from there and made it tougher. Also, we did not want to do something science fiction. We wanted to do it realistic. I did not want costumes with lots of zippers and plastic. So my job was to make the characters believable." 76. Post-production. Warner Bros. Announced in early October 2016 that the film would be titled Blade Runner 2049. 77 Editing commenced in December in Los Angeles, with the intention of having the film be rated R. 78 At the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con, Villeneuve said the film would run for 2 hours and 32 minutes. 79 An early cut of the film was 4 hours long, and Villeneuve described this version as quite strong, but also at times too self-indulgent. He said he prefers the shorter final version, which is more elegant, though Ridley Scott has voiced the opinion that it is still too long. Villeneuve said he will not show the 4-hour cut to anyone. 80-81 As with Skyfall, 2012, cinematographer Roger Deakins created his own IMAX master of the film, rather than using the proprietary DMR process that IMAX usually uses with films not shot with IMAX cameras. 82. Music. Main article, Blade Runner 2049, soundtrack. Rapper-producer LP said he was asked to compose music for the first Blade Runner 2049 trailer, but his score was rejected, or ignored. 83 Johan Johansson, who had worked with Villeneuve on Prisoners, Sicario, and Arrival, was initially announced as composer for the film. 84 Villeneuve and Johansson decided to end the collaboration, however, because Villeneuve thought the film needed something different, and also that he needed to go back to something closer to Vangelis's soundtrack of the first film. 85 Composers Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfisch joined the project in July 2017. 86 In September, Johansson's agent confirmed that he was no longer involved and was contractually forbidden from commenting. 87 The musical cue during the final scene, Tears in the Rain, is a callback to the Tears in Rain scene from Blade Runner, which saw the death of the film's central antagonist Roy Batty. The track is a reimagined version of the original Vangelis work. 1288 Additionally, a segment from Sergei Prokofiev's musical composition Peter and the Wolf, Russian, plays whenever the emanator is activated or deactivated. 8990. Release. Theatrical. An advertisement for the film at Birmingham New Street Station, October 2017. Blade Runner 2049 premiered on October 3, 2017, at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, although following the 2017 Las Vegas Strip shooting, the red carpet events were cancelled prior to the screening. 91 It was the opening feature at the Festival du Nouveau Cinema in Montreal the following day. 92 It also was premiered in Switzerland at the Zurich Film Festival on October 4, 2017. 93-94 Sony Pictures Releasing, which had obtained rights to release the film in overseas territories. 95 was the first to release Blade Runner 2049 in theaters, first in France and Belgium on October 4, 2017. 94 then in other countries on the 2 following days. 94 The film was released by Warner Bros. In North America on October 6, 2017. 94 Alcon Entertainment partnered with Oculus VR to create and distribute content for the film exclusively for its virtual reality format and launched it alongside the theatrical release of October 6, 2017. 96 That content would later be referred to as Blade Runner, Revelations. 97 Due to the popularity and preference of IMAX in 2D, as opposed to 3D, among filmgoers in North America, the film was shown in IMAX theaters in only 2D domestically, but was screened in 3D formats internationally. 98 Just like Skyfall, the movie was specially formatted for IMAX at the expanded aspect ratio of 1.9:1. 99 The film is rated R by the Motion Picture Association of America for violence, some sexuality, nudity, and language. 100 Some scenes in the film that featured nudity were censored in Turkey. This decision received criticism from the country's film critics. 101 Marketing. Warner Bros. And Columbia Pictures jointly released an announcement teaser on December 19, 2016. 102-103 A selection of excerpts, lasting 15 seconds, were released as a trailer tease on May 5, 2017, in the lead-up to the full trailer, which was released on May 8, 2017. 104 A second trailer was released on July 17, 2017. 105 Short films. 3 short films were made to explore events that occur in the 30 years between Blade Runner, which is set in 2019, and Blade Runner 2049. 2036, Nexus Dawn is directed by Luke Scott, and follows Neander Wallace as he presents a new Nexus 9 replicant to lawmakers in an attempt to have a prohibition on replicants lifted. The short film also stars Benedict Wong as one of the lawmakers. 106-107. 2048, Nowhere to Run, also directed by Scott, follows Sapper Morton as he protects a mother and daughter from thugs, outing himself as a replicant in the process. 108. Blade Runner Blackout 2022, is an anime directed by Shinichiro Watanabe. 109 wherein a rogue replicant named Iggy carries out an operation to detonate a nuclear warhead over Los Angeles, triggering an electromagnetic pulse that erases the Tyrell Corporation's database of registered replicants. Edward James Olmos reprises his role as Gaff in this film. Flying Lotus composed the soundtrack. Watanabe had used his music as a temp score in making a rough cut of the short. 110. Anime series. Blade Runner, Black Lotus, is an anime TV series created by Toonami and Crunchyroll that takes place in 2032 in Los Angeles, focusing on a female replicant protagonist. The series was directed by Shinji Aramaki and Kenji Kamiyama with Shinichiro Watanabe as creative director. Home media. The film was released on DVD, Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, and 4K Blu-ray on January 16, 2018. 111 It made approximately $29 million in U.S. physical home media sales. 112. Reception. Box office. Blade Runner 2049 grossed $92.1 million in the United States and Canada, and $175.4 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $267.5 million, against a production budget between $150 to $185 million. 679-113 The projected worldwide total the film needed to gross in order to break even was estimated to be around $400 million, and in November 2017, The Hollywood Reporter wrote that the film was expected to lose Alcon as much as $80 million. 114 Ridley Scott attributed the film's underperformance to the runtime, saying, "It's slow. Long. Too long. I would have taken out half an hour." 115. In the United States and Canada, the film was initially projected to gross $43 to $47 million in its opening weekend. 116 In September 2017, A survey from Fandango indicated that the film was one of the most anticipated releases of the season. 116 It made $4 million from Thursday night previews, including $800,000 from IMAX theaters, but just $12.6 million on its first day, lowering weekend estimates to $32 million. 117 It made $11.3 million on Saturday and went on to debut to $31.5 million, performing below both projections but still finishing first at the box office and marking the biggest openings of Villeneuve and Gosling's careers. 117 The film would hold Gosling's opening weekend record for 6 years until 2023, when it was overtaken by Barbie. 118 Regarding the opening weekend, director Villeneuve said, "It's a mystery. All the indexes and marketing tools they were using predicted that it would be a success. The film was acclaimed by critics. So everyone expected the first weekend's results to be impressive, and they were shocked. They still don't understand." 119. Deadline Hollywood attributed the film's performance to the 163-minute runtime limiting the number of showtimes theaters could have, lack of appeal to mainstream audiences, and the marketing being vague and relying on nostalgia and established fan base to carry it. 120 In its second weekend, the film dropped 52.7% to $15.5 million, finishing second behind newcomer Happy Death Day, $26 million, 121 and dropped another 54% in its third weekend to $7.2 million, finishing in fourth behind Boo 2, A Medea Halloween, Geostorm, and Happy Death Day. 122. Overseas, the film was expected to debut to an additional $60 million, for a worldwide opening of around $100 million. 113 It actually made $50.2 million internationally, finishing number 1 in 45 markets, for a global opening of $81.7 million. The film made $8 million in the United Kingdom, $4.9 million in Russia, $1.8 million in Brazil, and $3.6 million in Australia. 123 It debuted in China on October 27, where it made $7.7 million opening weekend, which was considered a disappointment. 124 125. Critical response. Roger Deakins' work on the film received critical acclaim and earned him his first Academy Award for Best Cinematography. Blade Runner 2049 was well received by the American press, and various U.S. publications included the film in their end of 2017 lists. 126 critics who saw the film before its release were asked by Villeneuve not to reveal certain characters and plot points in those early reviews. 127. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 88% of 440 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 8.3/10. The website's consensus reads, "Visually stunning and narratively satisfying, Blade Runner 2049 deepens and expands its predecessor's story while standing as an impressive filmmaking achievement in its own right." 128. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 81 out of 100, based on 54 critics, indicating universal acclaim. 129 audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A- on an A+ to F scale. 117. Critical reviews compared the sequel favorably to Blade Runner as a worthy successor, advancing the franchise mythos. 130 131 132 Though some were conflicted over the pacing and tonal shifts of the story. 133 134 And the film drew occasional disapproval from reviewers who felt it lacked the spectacle and dramatic depth of its predecessor. 134 135 136 The film's craftsmanship was the main source of praise from journalists, who routinely singled out Villeneuve for his expertise. A.O. Scott of the New York Times viewed Blade Runner 2049 as an introspection of Villeneuve's own sensibilities, the product of a director exuding an unnerving calm, 135. While Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle said the film seemed to employ a similar narrative tone to the director's late-period films such as Arrival. 137. The Villeneuve, Deakins collaboration was noted for the creation of cinematography displaying the kind of complex artistry one would expect from the profession's top veteran, 138, with Deakins' work described as bleakly beautiful. 139. Other aspects of Blade Runner 2049, such as the set design, writing, and scoring, were cited among the strengths of the film. 139. 140. The actors' performances were a principal topic of discussion among critics. Critiques of the dynamic of the cast were positive in the media. 141. And reviewers often distinguished Gosling, Ford, and Wright for further praise. 140. 142. 143. Gosling's work was described as superb, soulful, 144, and he was considered physically convincing as a replicant in his expression and appearance. 142. Meanwhile, critics from The Hollywood Reporter and from Empire magazine were among those who believed Ford worked a career-best performance. 143. One other journalists, such as Peter Travers of Rolling Stone, viewed the two men as double dynamite in conversational scenes, in which the film assumes a resonance that is both tragic and hopeful. 144. One particular point of contention in reviews of Blade Runner 2049 was characterization. Some critics, for example, saw Kay's romance with Joy as an idea of unrealized potential because the film explores their relationship only superficially, so Joy never seems to develop into a fleshed-out character. 145. Some criticized the film's depiction of its female characters as being too submissive. 146. The fate of Kay in the closing scenes of the film has been a matter of debate. Some critics have suggested that his demise is open to interpretation, as it is not explicitly stated in the film that Kay has died. 147. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, screenwriter Michael Green expressed surprise that Kay's death had been called into question, referring to the use of the Tears in Rain musical motif in the final scene. 12. The question of whether Deckard is a human or a replicant has been an ongoing controversy since the original release of Blade Runner. 148. Ridley Scott has stated that Deckard was a replicant. 149. Others, however, including Harrison Ford, disagree, and feel preserving the ambiguity of Deckard's status important to the film. 150. 151. 152. Blade Runner 2049 does not settle this debate. 153. During various physical struggles, Deckard showed no sign of artificial replicant strength. However, Gaff described Deckard to Kay as retired, and replicant maker Neander Wallace tells Deckard that "You are a wonder to me, Mr. Deckard," and that he might have been designed to fall in love with Rachel. 151. Rutger Hauer, who played Roy Batty in the original film, was critical of the sequel, saying, "In many ways, Blade Runner wasn't about the replicants, it was about what does it mean to be human? It's like E.T. But I'm not certain what the question was in the second Blade Runner. It's not a character-driven movie and there's no humor, there's no love, there's no soul. You can see the homage to the original. But that's not enough to me." 154. In 2025, the film ranked number 63 on the Reader's Choice edition of the New York Times list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century. 155. Social commentary. Reviewing the film for Vice, Charlotte Gush was critical of its portrayal of women, who she said were either prostitutes, holographic housewives or victims dying brutal deaths. While acknowledging that misogyny was part of the dystopia in Scott's 1982 original, she stated that the sequel was eye-gougingly sexist. 156. Writing for The Guardian, Anna Smith expressed similar concerns, stating that sexualized images of women dominate the stunning futuristic cityscapes. 146 Sarah Stewart of the New York Post entitled her review "You'll Love the New Blade Runner Unless You're a Woman." 157. Rachel Keynes of Movie Pilot countered that the gender politics in Blade Runner 2049 are intentional. The movie is about secondary citizens, replicants, orphans, women, slaves. Just by depicting these secondary citizens in subjugation doesn't mean that it is supportive of these depictions, they are a condemnation. 158. Helen Lewis of The New Statesman suggested that the film is an uneasy feminist parable about controlling the means of reproduction and that its villain, Neander Wallace, is consumed by rage that women can do something he cannot. Fertility is the perfect theme for the dystopia of Blade Runner 2049 because of the Western elite anxiety that over-educated, over-liberated women are having fewer children or choosing to opt out of childbearing altogether. 1 in 5 women is now childless by the age of 45, the rates are higher among women who have been to university. Feminism is one potential solution to this problem, removing the barriers which make women feel that motherhood is a closing of doors. Another is to take flight and find another exploitable class to replace human females. Maybe androids don't dream of electric sheep, but some human men certainly dream of electric wombs. 159. In an interview with Vanity Fair, Denis Villeneuve responded that he is very sensitive about his portrayal of women. Blade Runner is not about tomorrow, it's about today. And I'm sorry, but the world is not kind on women. 161. Quoting from viewer demographics for the film by Variety, Donald Clark of the Irish Times indicated that female audiences seemed alienated from it, as just 35% of its audience was female. 162. Esquire magazine commented on the controversial aspects of the sex scene involving Kay, the holographic Joy and replicant Mariette, calling it a robo-menage a trois, and contrasted it with the sex scene between Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson in Her, 2013. 163. Mackenzie Davis, who portrayed Mariette, argued for the self-awareness of the film's social commentary in an interview with the website Refinery29. Asked how she believed Blade Runner 2049 differs from Blade Runner in its portrayal of women, Davis responded, "I think it's pretty self-aware about a pornographic economy that has reduced the roles of women to sheer consumption. The normalization of women's roles as things to be consumed, there's products that are made, just like there are now. The idea of the semi-sentient sex doll is really in line with what's going on in this Blade Runner universe, about having a thing that fulfills everything you want, but doesn't talk back and can't argue with you, but can be a loving, supporting companion and also fulfill all your sexual needs. Feels like something that's very contemporary and something the movie is very self-aware about. And then I think that there are female roles in different castes of this society that are able to be more embodied and powerful in conventional ways, and also have cracks in their facade where you see their vulnerabilities. But it seems like this world is so dependent on this caste system of humans perform these roles, replicants perform these roles, human superiors, creators, and those are the ways that women sort of travel between. But there isn't a lot of upward mobility. 164. Other outlets noted the film's depiction of environmental issues, the impacts of climate change and a wider ecocide. 165-166 Science fiction author Matthew Kressel told the BBC that he thought the environmental collapse the film so vividly depicts is not too far off from where we are today. Stills from the film were also compared to air pollution in Beijing and wildfire smoke in San Francisco and New York City. 167, 168, 169. Accolades. Main article, list of accolades received by Blade Runner 2049. Blade Runner 2049 received numerous awards and nominations. At the 90th Academy Awards, it was nominated for 5 awards, winning Best Cinematography for Deakins, and Best Visual Effects for John Nelson, Gerd Nefzer, Paul Lambert, and Richard R. Hoover. 170 at the 71st British Academy Film Awards, It received 8 nominations, including Best Director, and 1 for Best Cinematography and Best Special Visual Effects. 171 at the 23rd Critics' Choice Awards, the film was nominated for 7 awards, winning for Best Cinematography. 172. Future. Potential sequels. During the promotional tour for the 2015 film The Martian, Scott expressed interest in making additional Blade Runner films. 173 in October 2017, Villeneuve said he expected a third film would be made if 2049 was successful. 174 Fancher, who wrote both films, said he was considering reviving an old story idea involving Deckard traveling to another country. 174 Ford has said he would be open to returning if he liked the script. 174 In January 2018, Scott stated that he had another story ready to evolve and be developed, that there is certainly one to be done for sure, referring to a third Blade Runner film. 175. In January 2020, Villeneuve expressed interest in revisiting this universe in a different way, making something disconnected from both other movies, as opposed to a direct sequel. 176. Blade Runner 2099, 2026. Main article, Blade Runner 2099. In November 2021, Scott announced that a Blade Runner TV series was in the works. 177 In February 2022, it was announced that the series, Blade Runner 2099, was in development at Alcon Entertainment, Sony Pictures Television and Amazon Studios. It will be set 50 years after the events of 2049. Scott will serve as executive producer and potentially direct the series, while Silke Luisa will serve as showrunner. 178 On October 12, 2022, it was reported that the series was officially approved and ready to move into production. 179. In April 2023, Joe Roberts writing for Slash Film announced progress for the planned filming and 2024 release of the limited series, stating, "We then learned, via BBC, that the show would film in Ireland, with Northern Ireland Screen Chief Executive Richard Williams confirming a spring 2023 start date. If that turns out to be the case, don't expect the series to make it to Prime Video in 2023. Filming will no doubt take months, and if post-production is anything like you might expect on a big-budget sci-fi outing, we should prepare for Blade Runner 2099 to debut sometime in 2024. 180. The series was getting ready to begin shooting in Belfast, when the production was postponed to 2024 due to the 2023 August strike. 181 After the strike was over, the production ended up leaving Northern Ireland entirely. Roughly £1.5 million had been spent of £4.1 million awarded by the Northern Ireland Screen Fund, but all money would be returned to the NI Screen Fund upon the production's exit from the country. However, this left a gap in Northern Ireland's production schedule, according to NI Screen Fund's chief executive Richard Williams. 182. Blade Runner 2099 is scheduled to premiere on Amazon Prime Video in 2026. 183. Video game. In June 2023, Annapurna Interactive announced Blade Runner 2033, Labyrinth was in development. It is to be set before the events of the movie and after the anime Blade Runner, Black Lotus. Ryan Thomas Gosling, /SL/Gosling 1 born November 12, 1980, is a Canadian actor. His work includes both independent films and major studio features, and his accolades include a Golden Globe Award, in addition to nominations for 3 Academy Awards, a Primetime Emmy Award, and 2 British Academy Film Awards. Gosling began his acting career when he was 13 on Disney Channel's The All-New Mickey Mouse Club, 1993 to 1995, and went on to appear in other family entertainment programs, including Are You Afraid of the Dark? 1995, and Goosebumps, 1996. His breakthrough role was that of a Jewish neo-Nazi in The Believer, 2001, and he gained stardom in the 2004 romantic drama The Notebook. He starred in the critically acclaimed independent dramas Half Nelson, 2006, for which he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor, Lars and the Real Girl, 2007, and Blue Valentine, 2010. In 2011, Gosling had three mainstream successes in the romantic comedy Crazy, Stupid, Love, the political drama The Ides of March, and the action thriller Drive. After making his directorial debut with Lost River, 2014, he starred in the financial satire The Big Short, 2015, the action comedy The Nice Guys, 2016, and the romantic musical La La Land, 2016. The latter won him a Golden Globe and a second Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. Further acclaim followed with the science fiction film Blade Runner 2049, 2017, and the biopic First Man, 2018. He played Ken in the fantasy comedy Barbie, 2023, which emerged as his highest-grossing release and earned him a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Gosling's band, Dead Man's Bones, released their self-titled debut album and toured North America in 2009. He is a co-owner of Tajin, a Moroccan restaurant in Beverly Hills, California. Gosling is a supporter of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, Invisible Children, and the Enough Project, and has traveled to Chad, Uganda and Eastern Congo to raise awareness about conflicts in the regions. He has been involved in peace promotion efforts in Africa for over a decade. Early life. Ryan Thomas Gosling was born on November 12, 1980, at St. Joseph's Hospital in London, Ontario to Thomas Ray Gosling, a traveling salesman for a paper mill, 3 and Donna, a secretary. 4-5 Both of his parents are of part French-Canadian descent, along with some German, English, Scottish, and Irish. 6-7 He and his family were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. 8 And Gosling has said that the religion influenced every aspect of their lives. 9 Because of his father's work, they moved around a lot. 3 And Gosling lived in both Cornwall, Ontario 10 and Burlington, Ontario 11 His parents divorced when he was 13. 12 And he and his older sister Mundy lived with their mother. For an experience Gosling has credited with programming him to think like a girl. 13. Gosling was educated at Gladstone Public School, 14 Cornwall Collegiate and Vocational School, and Lester B. Pearson High School. 15 As a child, he watched Dick Tracy and was inspired to become an actor. 16 He hated being a child. 9 17 Was bullied in elementary school. 18 And had no friends until he was 14 or 15. 19 20 In school he was always picking fights to impress girls. 21 In grade 1, having been heavily influenced by the action film First Blood, he took steak knives to school and threw them at other children during recess. This incident led to a suspension. 17 He was unable to read. 22 And was evaluated for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, but was not diagnosed with it and, contrary to false reports, never took medication. 23 His mother left her job and homeschooled him for a year. 24 He has said homeschooling gave him a sense of autonomy that I've never really lost. 9 Gosling performed in front of audiences from an early age, encouraged by his sister being a performer. 25 He and his sister sang together at weddings. He performed with Elvis Presley, his uncle's Elvis Presley tribute act. 26 And was involved with a local ballet company. 27 Performing boosted his self-confidence as it was the only thing for which he received praise. 20 He developed an idiosyncratic accent because, as a child, he thought having a Canadian accent did not sound tough. He began to model his accent on that of Marlon Brando. 28 Gosling dropped out of high school at age 17 to focus on his acting career. 29. Acting career. See also, Ryan Gosling filmography. 1993 to 1999, career beginnings. In 1993, 12-year-old Gosling attended an open audition in Montreal for Disney Channel's revival of the Mickey Mouse Club. 25 After he successfully auditioned, he was given a 2-year contract as a mousekeeper and subsequently moved to Orlando, Florida to film the show. 29 He has said he appeared on screen infrequently because other children were considered more talented. 30 Nonetheless, he has described the job as the greatest 2 years of his life. 29 Fellow cast members on the show included Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Justin Timberlake, Carrie Russell, and J.C. Chasez. Gosling has credited the experience with instilling in him this great sense of focus. 31. He was specifically close friends with Timberlake because they lived together for 6 months during the second year of the show. Timberlake's mother became Gosling's legal guardian after his own mother had to return to Canada for work reasons. 32 Gosling has said that even though he and Timberlake talk infrequently, they are still supportive of each other. 31. After the show ended in 1995, Gosling returned to Canada, where he continued to appear in family entertainment television series, including Are You Afraid of the Dark? 1995, 33 and Goosebumps, 1996, 33 and starred in Breaker High, 1997-98, as Sean Hanlon. 33 When he was 18, he moved to New Zealand to film the Fox Kids adventure series Young Hercules, 1998-1999, as the title character. 33 He later said that he initially enjoyed working on the series, but began to care too much about the show, so it was no longer fun for him. He wanted to spend more time sitting with and devising a character as well as play a variety of roles, so he chose to transition into film and not accept any more television work. 29. 2000 to 2003, independent films. Aged 19, Gosling decided to move into serious acting. He was dropped by his agent and initially found it difficult to secure work because of the stigma attached to children's television. 34 After a supporting role in the football drama Remember the Titans, he secured a lead role as a young Jewish neo-Nazi in 2001's The Believer. Director Henry Bean said he cast Gosling because his Mormon upbringing helped him understand the isolation of Judaism. 35 Kevin Thomas of the Los Angeles Times praised an electrifying and terrifyingly convincing performance. 36 While Todd McCarthy of Variety felt his dynamite performance could scarcely have been better. 37 The film won the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival. 38 And Gosling has described it as the film that kind of gift wrapped for me the career that I have now. 26 Because of the controversial nature of the film, it was difficult to secure financial backing for a full theatrical release. 39 And the film was instead broadcast on Showtime. 39 The film was a commercial failure, grossing $416,925 worldwide from a production budget of $1.5 million. 40. In 2002, Gosling co-starred in the psychological thriller Murder by Numbers with Sandra Bullock and Michael Pitt. 41 Where Gosling and Pitt portrayed a pair of high school seniors who believe they can commit the perfect murder. Bullock played the detective tasked with investigating the crime. Lisa Schwartzbaum of Entertainment Weekly described him as a phenomenal talent even in junk like this. 42 While Todd McCarthy felt that the strong and charismatic young actors were let down by the screenplay. 43 The film was a minor commercial success, grossing $56 million worldwide from a production budget of $50 million. 44 His second screen appearance of 2002 was in The Slaughter Rule with David Morse, which explores the relationship between a high school football player and his troubled coach in rural Montana. Gosling has said that the opportunity to work with Morse made him a better actor. 45 Stephen Holden of the New York Times described Gosling as major star material with a rawness and an intensity that recall the young Matt Dillon. 46 While Manala Dargis of the Los Angeles Times was won over by his raw talent. 47 The film was released in just 3 U.S. theaters and grossed $13,411. 48 In 2003, Gosling starred in the United States of Leland as a teenager imprisoned for the murder of a disabled boy. He was drawn to the role because it was unusual to find a character that was emotionally disconnected for the whole film. 49. Critic Roger Ebert felt that the gifted actor does everything that can be done with Leland, but the character comes from a writer's conceits, not from life. 50. A.O. Scott of the New York Times noted that he struggles to rescue Leland from the clutches of cliché. 51. While David Rooney of Variety felt that his one-note, blankly disturbed act has none of the magnetic edge of his breakthrough work in The Believer. 52. The film grossed $343,847 in the United States and was not released overseas. 53. 2004 to 2009, The Notebook and Half Nelson. Gosling gained mainstream attention in 2004 after starring opposite fellow Canadian Rachel McAdams in the romantic drama film The Notebook, a film adaptation of Nicholas Sparks' novel of the same name, directed by Nick Cassavetes. 54. Gosling played Noah Calhoun and commented on the role, "It gave me an opportunity to play a character over a period of time, from 1940 to 1946, that was quite profound and formative." 55. He sought to imbue his character with quiet strength and was inspired by Sam Shepard's performance in Days of Heaven. Shepard co-starred in The Notebook. 56. Filming took place in Charleston, South Carolina, in late 2002 and early 2003. 57. Although Gosling and McAdams became romantically involved in 2005, they had a combative relationship on the set. 58-59. We inspired the worst in each other, Gosling has said. "It was a strange experience, making a love story and not getting along with your co-star in any way." 9. At one point, Gosling asked Cassavetes to bring somebody else in for my off-camera shot because he felt McAdams was uncooperative. 59. The New York Times praised the spontaneous and combustible performances of the two leads and noted that, against your better judgment, you root for the pair to beat the odds against them. 60. Desson Thompson of the Washington Post praised Gosling's beguiling unaffectedness and noted that it's hard not to like these two or begrudge them a great love together. 61. The film grossed over $115 million worldwide. 62. Gosling won 14 Choice Awards, 63 and an MTV Movie Award. 64. Entertainment Weekly has said that the movie contains the all-time best movie kiss. 65. While the Los Angeles Times has included a scene from the film in a list of the 50 classic movie kisses. 66. The Notebook has appeared on many most romantic movies lists. 67. 68. 69. 70. Gosling at the 2007 Toronto International Film Festival. In 2005, Gosling appeared as a disturbed young art student in Stay, a psychological thriller film co-starring Naomi Watts and Ewan McGregor. In an uncomplimentary review of the film, Manala Dargis of the New York Times stated that Gosling, like his fans, deserves better. 71. Todd McCarthy remarked that the capable Gosling and McGregor deliver nothing new from what they've shown before. 72. The film grossed $8 million worldwide. 73. Gosling was unfazed by the negative reaction. "I had a kid come up to me on the street, 10 years old, and he says, 'Are you that guy from Stay? What the F was that movie about?' I think that's great. I'm just as proud if someone says, 'Hey, you made me sick in that movie,' as if they say I made them cry." 74. Gosling next starred in 2006's Half Nelson as a drug-addicted junior high school teacher who forms a bond with a young student. To prepare for the role, Gosling moved to New York for 1 month before shooting began. He lived in a small apartment in Brooklyn and spent time shadowing an 8th grade teacher. 75. Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times described it as a mesmerizing performance that shows the kind of deep understanding of character few actors manage. 76. Ruth Stein of the San Francisco Chronicle drew comparisons with Marlon Brando and asserted that nobody who cares about great acting will want to miss his performance. 77. Roger Ebert believed that his performance proves he's one of the finest actors working in contemporary movies. 78. Gosling garnered a nomination for the Academy Award for Best Actor. 22. The film grossed $4 million at the worldwide box office. 79. In 2007, he was invited to join the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. 80. Gosling played an introvert who falls for a sex doll in the 2007 film Lars and the Real Girl. He drew inspiration from James Stewart's performance in Harvey. 81. Roger Ebert felt a film about a life-sized love doll had been turned into a life-affirming statement of hope because of a performance by Ryan Gosling that says things that cannot be said. 82. And Hornaday of the Washington Post described his performance as a small miracle, because he changes and grows so imperceptibly before our eyes. 83. However, Manala Dargis of the New York Times felt the performance is a rare miscalculation in a mostly brilliant career. 84. He was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, Motion Picture Musical or Comedy and a Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Leading Role. 85-86. The film was a box office failure, failing to recoup its $12 million production budget. 87. Gosling starred opposite Anthony Hopkins in the 2007 courtroom thriller Fracture. He originally turned down the role, but changed his mind when Hopkins signed on. 21. Gosling noted that he was drawn to his character, Willie, because he had flaws and seemed like a real person. 88. He spent time shadowing lawyers and observing courtroom proceedings in preparation for the role. 89. Claudia Pook of USA Today declared that watching a veteran like Hopkins verbally joust with one of the best young actors in Hollywood is worth the price of admission. 90. Manala Dargis of the New York Times felt it was a treat to watch the spectacle of that crafty scene stealer Anthony Hopkins mixing it up with that equally cunning screen nibbler Ryan Gosling. Each actor is playing a pulp type rather than a fully formed individual, but both fill in the blanks with an alchemical mix of professional and personal charisma. 91. The film grossed over $91 million worldwide. 92. Gosling was scheduled to begin filming The Lovely Bones in 2007. However, he left the production 2 days before filming began because of creative differences and was replaced by Mark Wahlberg. 93. Gosling was cast as the father of the murdered teenage girl and initially felt he was too young for the role. The director Peter Jackson and the producer Fran Walsh persuaded him that he could be aged with hair and makeup changes. 94. Before shooting began, Gosling gained 60 pounds, 27 kilograms, in weight and grew a beard to appear older. 94. Walsh then began to feel he was not right. It was our blindness, the desire to make it work no matter what. 94. Gosling later said, "We didn't talk very much during the pre-production process, which was the problem. I just showed up on set, and I had gotten it wrong. Then I was fat and unemployed." 94. He has said the experience was an important realization for me, not to let your ego get involved. It's okay to be too young for a role. 95. 2010 to 2012, widespread recognition. Following a 3-year absence from the screen, Gosling starred in 5 films in 2010 and 2011. "I've never had more energy," Gosling said. "I'm more excited to make films than I used to be. I used to kind of dread it. It was so emotional and taxing. But I found a way to have fun while doing it. And I think that translates into the films." 34. He has also spoken of feeling depressed when not working. 20. In 2010, he starred opposite Michelle Williams in Derek Cianfrance's directorial debut, the marital drama Blue Valentine. The low-budget film was mainly improvised and Gosling has said you had to remind yourself you were making a film. 96. Nicholas Al of the San Francisco Chronicle felt he brings a preternatural understanding of people to his performance. 97. Wale Scott of the New York Times found him to be convincing as the rundown, desperate, older Dean, and maybe a bit less so as the younger version. 98. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly wrote that he plays Dean as a snarky working-class hipster, but when his anger is unleashed, the performance turns powerful. 99. However, Wesley Morris of the Boston Globe felt the performance was an example of hipsterism misdirected. 100. He was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, Motion Picture Drama. 101. The film was a box office success, grossing over $12 million worldwide from a production budget of $1 million. 102. Gosling's second on-screen appearance of 2010 was in the mystery film All Good Things with Kirsten Dunst, based on a true story. He played the role of New York real estate heir David Marks, who was investigated for the disappearance of his wife, played by Dunst. 103. Gosling found the filming process to be a dark experience and did not undertake any promotional duties for the film. 104. When asked if he was proud of the film, he said, "I'm proud of what Kirsten does in the movie." 104. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone wrote that he gets so deep into character you can feel his nerve endings. 105. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle found the chameleonic Gosling is completely convincing as this empty shell of a man. 106. Betsy Sharkey of the Los Angeles Times felt that the film belonged to Dunst, but praised Gosling's performance. 107. The film grossed $644,535 worldwide. 108. Also in 2010, Gosling narrated and produced Regeneration, a documentary that explores the cynicism in today's youth towards social and political causes. 109. 110. Gosling in 2011. 2011 saw Gosling expand his horizons by appearing in 3 diverse, high-profile roles. He co-starred in his first comedic role in the romantic comedy drama Crazy, Stupid, Love, with Steve Carell and Emma Stone. 111. Gosling took cocktail-making classes at a Los Angeles bar in preparation for his role as a smooth-talking ladies' man. 112. Ann Hornaday of the Washington Post said his seductive command presence suggests we may have found our next George Clooney. 113. Peter Travers declared him a comic knockout. 114. While Claudia Pook of USA Today felt he reveals a surprising knack for comedy. 115. He was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, Motion Picture Musical or Comedy. 116. The film was a box office success, grossing over $142 million worldwide. 117. With adjustments for inflation, it is the 4th most successful of Gosling's career. 118. Gosling's first action role was in Drive, based on a novel by James Salas. 119. Gosling played a Hollywood stunt performer who moonlights as a getaway driver, and he has described the film as a violent John Hughes movie. I always thought if Pretty in Pink had head smashing it would be perfect. 120. Roger Ebert compared Gosling to Steve McQueen and stated that he embodies presence and sincerity. He has shown a gift for finding arresting, powerful characters and can achieve just about anything. 121. Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal pondered the ongoing mystery of how he manages to have so much impact with so little apparent effort. It's irresistible to liken his economical style to that of Marlon Brando. 122. The film was a box office success, grossing $81 million worldwide from a production budget of $15 million. 123. In his final appearance of 2011, Gosling co-starred with Philip Seymour Hoffman in the political drama The Ides of March directed by George Clooney, in which he played an ambitious press secretary. 124. Gosling partly decided to do the film to become more politically aware. I'm Canadian and so American politics aren't really in my wheelhouse. 125. Joe Morgenstern stated that Gosling and Hoffman are eminently well equipped to play variations on their characters' main themes. Yet neither actor has great material to conjure with in the script. 126. In a generally tepid review, Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times asserted that it was certainly involving to see the charismatic Gosling verbally spar with superb character actors like Hoffman and Paul Giamatti. 127. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle felt there was one aspect to the character that Gosling can't quite nail down, that might simply be outside his sphere, which is idealism. 128. He was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, Motion Picture Drama. 116. The film grossed $66 million worldwide. 129. In 2012, Gosling filmed Terrence Malick's Song to Song, but the film would not be released until 2017. 130. 131. 2013 to 2014, mixed critical reception and directorial debut. Gosling at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival. In 2013's crime thriller Gangster Squad, Gosling portrayed SGT Jerry Wooters, a 1940s LAPD officer who attempts to outsmart mob boss Mickey Cohen, played by Sean Penn. He was reunited with Emma Stone as his love interest, after their earlier pairing in Crazy, Stupid, Love. Stone has said she hopes they will find more projects to work together on. 132. A.O. Scott of the New York Times described the film as an excuse for the cast to earn some money trying out funny voices and suppressing whatever sense of nuance they might possess. 133. Christy Lemire of the Boston Globe criticized Gosling's weird, whispery voice and his barely developed, one-note character. 134. However, Betsy Sharkey of the Los Angeles Times felt that there was a seductive power in the scenes shared by Gosling and Stone, but like too much else in the film, it's a scenario that is only half played out. 135. In The Place Beyond the Pines, a generational drama directed by Blue Valentine's Derek Cianfrance. 136. Gosling played Luke, a motorcycle stunt rider who robs banks to provide for his family. 137. The shoot was described by Gosling as the best experience I have ever had making a film. 27. A.O. Scott of the New York Times praised his performance, writing, "Mr. Gosling's cool self-possession, the only thing he was allowed to display in Drive, is complicated, made interesting, by hints of childlike innocence and vulnerability." 138. Scott found as of the Village Voice was unimpressed. Gosling's character verges on parody. Gosling uses a soft, wounded half-whisper that tells us this is all some kind of put-on. It's a close variation on the role Gosling played to stronger effect in Nicholas Winding Refn's existential Hollywood thriller, Drive, where it was clear the character was meant to be an abstraction. 139. David Denby of The New Yorker remarked that he reprises his inexorable loner routine. 140. The film grossed $35 million worldwide from a production budget of $15 million. 141. Later in 2013, Gosling starred in the violent revenge drama Only God Forgives. 142. Directed by Drive's Nicholas Winding Refn, Gosling undertook Muay Thai training in preparation for the role. 143. And has described the script as the strangest thing I've ever read. 143. Both the film and his performance drew negative reviews. 144. 145. 146. David Adelstein of New York Magazine stated, Gosling looked like a major actor as a skinhead in The Believer and a star in Half Nelson. Then he stopped acting and started posing. His performance in Only God Forgives, would God forgive that title, is one long, moist stare. 147. Stephen Holden of the New York Times criticized Gosling's inability to give his automaton any suggestion of an inner life. 148. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone commented that Gosling, while meant to be a blank page for us to write on, often looks merely blank. 149. In early 2013, Gosling announced that he was taking a break from acting, stating, "I've lost perspective on what I'm doing. I think it's good for me to take a break and reassess why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it. And I think this is probably a good way to learn about that." 150. Gosling's directorial debut Lost River competed in the Uncertain Regard section at the 2014 Cannes Film Festival. 151 of Fantasy Noir, written by Gosling, stars Christina Hendricks, Ben Mendelsohn, and Matt Smith. 152-153 The film received largely unfavorable reviews. 154 Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian found it insufferably conceited and remarked that Gosling had lost any sense of proportion or humility. 155 Robbie Collin of the Daily Telegraph described Lost River as mind-bogglingly pleased with itself. 156 While Variety's Justin Chang dismissed the derivative film as a train wreck. 157 2015 Present, established actor. Gosling at the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con. In 2015, Gosling played a bond salesman in the ensemble financial satire The Big Short, a Best Picture nominee at the 2016 Academy Awards. David Sims of The Atlantic felt that he was smarmily funny, somehow simultaneously magnetic and repulsive. After years wandering the halls of mediocre art cinema, it's wonderful to see him cut loose again. 158 Peter Travers of Rolling Stone said, Gosling, a virtuoso of verbal sleaze, talks directly to the camera, and he's volcanically fierce and funny. 159 The following year, Gosling starred in the black comedy The Nice Guys, opposite Russell Crowe. 160 and in Damien Chazelle's musical La La Land, for which he won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, Motion Picture Musical or Comedy, and received his second Academy Award for Best Actor nomination. 161 Robbie Collin praised his chemistry with co-star Emma Stone, writing, both stars are so attuned to each other's pace and flow that their repartee just seems to tumble out, perfectly formed. 162 It emerged as one of his most commercially successful films, with earnings of over $440 million against its $30 million budget. 163 Gosling was signed on to work with Terrence Malick in 2004 on the biographical film Che, but later dropped out. 165 He later starred in Malick's Song to Song, 2017, which had been filmed in 2012, and co-starred Rooney Mara, Michael Fassbender, and Natalie Portman. 167 Also in 2017, he starred in Blade Runner 2049, a sequel to the 1982 science fiction film Blade Runner, directed by Denis Villeneuve and co-starring Harrison Ford, who reprised his role as Rick Deckard. Gosling's role was as Officer K, a Blade Runner working for the LAPD whose job it is to kill rogue bioengineered humans known as replicants. 168 A.O. Scott found him to be perfectly cast, adding that his ability to elicit sympathy while seeming too distracted to want it, his knack for making boredom look like passion and vice versa, makes him a perfect warm-blooded robot for our time. 169 Despite being Gosling's largest box office opening, grossing $31.5 million domestically, the film generally underperformed at the box office. 170 In 2018, Gosling portrayed Neil Armstrong, the astronaut who became the first man to walk on the moon in 1969, in Chazelle's biopic First Man, based on the book First Man, The Life of Neil A. Armstrong. 171 Writing for IndieWire, Michael Nordini commended him for bringing quiet charisma and grace to his role, while Nicholas Barber of the BBC hailed him as the best deadpan actor in the business. 173 He received a nomination for the Critics' Choice Movie Award for Best Actor. 174 After a 4-year break from film, Gosling returned starring in the 2022 spy action thriller The Gray Man, opposite Chris Evans and Ana de Armas. 175 The film had a limited theatrical release and was distributed by Netflix. Despite negative reviews from critics, who described the film as mediocre and full of cliches, a sequel has been announced and is in development. 176. 177. In the following year, Gosling starred as Ken in Greta Gerwig's fantasy comedy Barbie, opposite Margot Robbie in the title role. 178. He also sang the song I'm Just Ken for the film's accompanying soundtrack as well as a cover of Push by Matchbox 20. 179. 180. His performance was acclaimed, with Anthony Lane of The New Yorker lauding his comedic performance as peak Gosling. 181. And Vulture's Alison Wilmore wrote that he comes close to stealing the movie. 182. He received Golden Globe, Critics' Choice, SAG, BAFTA, and Academy Award nominations for his performance. 183. 184. 185. 186. 187. He performed I'm Just Ken Live at the 96th Academy Awards, where it was nominated for Best Original Song. 188. Gosling next starred in the action comedy film The Fall Guy alongside Emily Blunt. 189. 190. It received positive reviews from critics but did not perform well commercially. 191. Gosling will next produce and star in Project Hail Mary, based on Andy Weir's science fiction novel of the same name. 192. Music career. Main article, Dead Man's Bones. Gosling at a Dead Man's Bones concert in 2009. In 2000, Gosling published a solo album with the misspelled title Angel with Tattooed Wings. 193. The track Put Me in the Car from this album was made available for download on the internet in 2007. 194. Also that year, Gosling and his friend Zach Shields formed the indie rock band Dead Man's Bones. The two first met in 2005 when Gosling was dating Rachel McAdams and Shields was dating her sister, Kayleen. 195. 196. They initially conceived of the project as a monster-themed musical but settled on forming a band when they realized putting on a stage production would be too expensive. 195. They recorded their eponymous debut album with the Silver Lake Conservatory's Children's Choir and learned to play all the instruments themselves. 195. Gosling contributed vocals, piano, guitar, bass guitar, and cello to the record. 196. The album was released through Anti Records on October 6, 2009. 197. Pitchfork Media was won over by the unique, catchy, and lovably weird record. 198. While Prefix felt the album was rarely kitschy and never inappropriate. 199. However, Spin felt the album doesn't reverse the rule that actors make dubious pop musicians. 200. And Entertainment Weekly criticized its cloying, gothic preciousness. 201. In September 2009, Gosling and Shields had a 3-night residency at LA's Bob Baker Marionette Theater where they performed alongside dancing neon skeletons and glowing ghosts. 196. 202. They then conducted a 13-day tour of North America in October 2009, using a local children's choir at every show. 203. 204. Instead of an opening act, a talent show was held each night. 205. In September 2010, they performed at Los Angeles FYF Festival. In 2011, the actor spoke of his intentions to record a second Dead Man's Bones album. No children's choir will be featured on the follow-up album because it's not very rock and roll. 206. Personal life. Gosling at the 2011 Cannes Film Festival. Gosling previously resided in New York City. 16. 207. He co-owns Tajin, a Moroccan restaurant in Beverly Hills, California. 208. He bought the restaurant on an impulse. He said he spent all his money on it. 209. Spent a year doing the renovation work himself, and now oversees the restaurant's menus. 209. 210. Gosling dated his Murder by Numbers co-star Sandra Bullock from 2002 to 2003. 211. He then had a relationship with his The Notebook co-star Rachel McAdams from 2005 to 2008. 212. 213. 214. Gosling has been in a relationship with his The Place Beyond the Pines co-star Eva Mendes since September 2011. 215 They have two daughters, born in 2014 and 2016. 217 When asked in a 2022 interview if she and Gosling had married, Mendes said that "I like to keep it all mysterious." 218 Charity work. Gosling supports various social causes. He has worked with PETA to encourage KFC and McDonald's to use improved methods of chicken slaughter, and on a campaign encouraging dairy farmers to stop dehorning cows. 219 220 221 In 2005, Gosling volunteered in Biloxi, Mississippi, in the cleanup effort following Hurricane Katrina. 222 He is a supporter of Invisible Children Incorporated, a group that raises awareness about the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, in Central Africa. 223 In 2005, he traveled to Darfur refugee camps in Chad. 224 He was a speaker at Campus Progress National Conference in 2008, where he discussed Darfur. 225 As part of his work with the Enough Project, he visited Uganda in 2007, 226 and Eastern Congo in 2010. 227 Accolades. Main article, list of awards and nominations received by Ryan Gosling. Among his many accolades, Gosling has received 3 Academy Award nominations, 2 British Academy Film Award nominations, 1 Golden Globe Award from 6 nominations, and 6 Screen Actors Guild Award nominations. In 2006, his role as a troubled history teacher in the drama film Half Nelson gained him nominations for an Academy Award 228 and Screen Actors Guild Award 229 for Best Actor. He received nominations for an Academy Award 230, British Academy Film Award 231, Golden Globe Award and Screen Actors Guild Award 232 for La La Land, 2016, and Barbie, 2023, in the Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor categories respectively, winning a Golden Globe Award for the former. His performances in Lars and the Real Girl, 2007, 233 Blue Valentine, 2010, 234 The Ides of March, and Crazy, Stupid, Love, both 2011, 235 also earned him Golden Globe nominations. Harrison Ford, born July 13, 1942, is an American actor. Regarded as a cinematic cultural icon, he has starred in many films over 7 decades, and is one of the highest-grossing actors in the world. Ford's accolades include nominations for an Academy Award, a British Academy Film Award, an Emmy Award, 5 Golden Globe Awards, and 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards. He is the recipient of the AFI Life Achievement Award, Cecil B. DeMille Award, Honorary César, and Honorary Palme d'Or, and he was honored as a Disney Legend in 2024. After making his screen debut in 1966 and early supporting roles in the films American Graffiti, 1973, and The Conversation, 1974, Ford achieved global stardom for portraying Han Solo in the space opera film Star Wars, 1977, a role he reprised in 5 films for the eponymous franchise spanning the next 4 decades. He also received recognition for his portrayal of the titular character in the Indiana Jones franchise, 1981 to 2023, Rick Deckard in the Blade Runner franchise, 1982 to 2017, and Jack Ryan in the action thriller films Patriot Games, 1992, and Clear and Present Danger, 1994. These roles established him as an action hero and one of Hollywood's most bankable stars from the late 1970s into the early 2000s. Ford's performance in the thriller film Witness, 1985, earned him his sole Oscar nomination for Best Actor. His other films include The Mosquito Coast, 1986, Working Girl, 1988, Presumed Innocent, 1990, The Fugitive, 1993, Sabrina, 1995, The Devil's Own, 1997, Air Force One, 1997, 6 Days, 7 Nights, 1998, What Lies Beneath, 2000, K-19, The Widowmaker, 2002, Cowboys and Aliens, 2011, 42, 2013, The Age of Adeline, 2015, The Call of the Wild, 2020, and Captain America, Brave New World, 2025. Ford has also starred in the Paramount Plus Western series 1923, 2022 to 2025, and the Apple TV Plus comedy series Shrinking, since 2023, earning a Primetime Emmy Award nomination for the latter. Outside acting, Ford is a licensed pilot. He has often assisted the emergency services in rescue missions near his home in Wyoming, and he chaired an aviation education program for youth from 2004 to 2009. 5. Ford is also an environmental activist, having served as the inaugural vice chair of Conservation International since 1991. 6. Early life. Harrison Ford was born at the Swedish Covenant Hospital in Chicago, Illinois 7 on July 13, 1942. 8 to former radio actress Dorothy, née Neidleman, and advertising executive and former actor John William Christopher Ford. 9. His younger brother, Terence, was born in 1945. 10. Their father was a Catholic of Irish descent. 9. While their mother was an Ashkenazi Jew whose parents were immigrants from Minsk, Belarus, then in the Russian Empire. 9/11. When asked in which religion he and his brother were raised, Ford jokingly responded Democrat. 12. And more seriously stated that they were raised to be liberals of every stripe. 13. When asked about what influence his Jewish and Irish Catholic ancestry may have had on him, he quipped, "As a man I've always felt Irish, as an actor I've always felt Jewish." 14. 15. 16. Ford was a Boy Scout, achieving the second highest rank of Life Scout. He worked at Napo, an adventure-based scout camp, as a counselor for the Reptile Study Merit Batch. Because of this, he and director Steven Spielberg later decided to depict the young Indiana Jones as a Life Scout in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1989. Ford graduated in 1960 from Maine East High School in Park Ridge, Illinois. His voice was the first student voice broadcast on his high school's new radio station, WMTH 15, and he was its first sportscaster during his senior year. He attended Ripon College in Ripon, Wisconsin 15, where he was a philosophy major and a member of the Sigma Nu fraternity. A self-described late bloomer, 17, Ford took a drama class in the final quarter of his senior year to get over his shyness and became fascinated with acting. 18. 19. 20. Ford was expelled from college for plagiarism 4 days before graduation. 21. Career. 1964 to 1976, early work. In 1964, after a season of summer stock with the Belfry Players in Wisconsin 22-23, Ford traveled to Los Angeles and eventually signed a contract with Columbia Pictures' New Talent program. 9. 60 to 69. His first known role was an uncredited one as a bellhop in Dead Heat on a Merry-Go-Round, 1966. There is little record of his non-speaking, or extra, roles in film. Ford was at the bottom of the hiring list, having offended producer Jerry Tokofsky. According to one anecdote, Tokofsky told Ford that when actor Tony Curtis delivered a bag of groceries, he could tell that Curtis was a movie star whereas Ford wasn't. Ford immediately retorted that if Curtis was truly a talented actor, he would have delivered them like a bellhop. Ford was apparently fired soon after. 9. Page needed 24. His speaking roles continued next with Love, 1967, though he was still uncredited. He was finally credited as Harrison J. Ford in the 1967 Western film A Time for Killing, starring Glenn Ford, George Hamilton, and Inger Stevens, but the J did not stand for anything since he has no middle name. 25. It was added to avoid confusion with a silent film actor named Harrison Ford. 26. Who appeared in more than 80 films between 1915 and 1932 and died in 1957. Ford later said that he was unaware of the existence of the earlier actor until he came upon a star with his own name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Ford soon dropped the J and worked for Universal Studios, playing minor roles in many television series throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s, including Gunsmoke, Ironside, The Virginian, The FBI, Love, American Style, and Kung Fu. He appeared in The Western Journey to Shiloh, 1968, and had an uncredited, non-speaking role in Michelangelo Antonioni's 1970 film Zabriskie Point as an arrested student protester. In 1968, he also worked as a camera operator for one of the Doors tours. 27. French filmmaker Jacques Demy chose Ford for the lead role of his first American film, Model Shop, 1969, but the head of Columbia Pictures thought Ford had no future in the film business and told Demy to hire a more experienced actor. The part eventually went to Gary Lockwood. Ford later commented that the experience had been nevertheless a positive one because Demy was the first to show such faith in him. 28-29. Not happy with the roles offered to him, Ford became a self-taught professional carpenter 15 to support his then-wife and 2 young sons. Clients at this time included the writers Joan Didion and John Gregory Dunn, who lived on the beach at Malibu. Ford appears in the documentary Joan Didion, The Center Will Not Hold. He and his wife became friends of the writers. 30. Casting director and fledgling producer Fred Roos championed the young Ford and secured him an audition with George Lucas for the role of Bob Falfa, which Ford went on to play in American Graffiti, 1973. 15. Ford's relationship with Lucas profoundly affected his career later. After director Francis Ford Coppola's film The Godfather was a success, he hired Ford to expand his office and gave him small roles in his next 2 films, The Conversation, 1974, and Apocalypse Now, 1979. In the latter film, Ford played an army colonel named G. Lucas. 1977 to 1997, worldwide stardom and acclaim. Ford's work in American Graffiti eventually landed him his first starring film role, when Lucas hired him to read lines for actors auditioning for roles in Lucas's upcoming epic space opera film Star Wars, 1977. Lucas was eventually won over by Ford's performance during these line reads and cast him as Han Solo. 31. Star Wars became one of the most successful and groundbreaking films of all time, and brought Ford, and his co-stars Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher, widespread recognition. Ford began to be cast in bigger roles in films throughout the late 1970s, including Heroes, 1977, Force 10 from Navarone, 1978, and Hanover Street, 1979. He also co-starred alongside Gene Wilder in the buddy comedy western The Frisco Kid, 1979, playing a bank robber with a heart of gold. Ford returned to star in the successful Star Wars sequels The Empire Strikes Back, 1980, and Return of the Jedi, 1983, as well as the Star Wars Holiday Special, 1978. Ford wanted Lucas to kill off Han Solo at the end of Return of the Jedi, saying, "That would have given the whole film a bottom," but Lucas refused. 32. Ford with production manager Chandran Ratnam on the set of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in Kandy, Sri Lanka, 1983. Ford's status as a leading actor was solidified with Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981, an action-adventure collaboration between Lucas and Steven Spielberg that gave Ford his second franchise role as the heroic, globe-trotting archaeologist Indiana Jones. Like Star Wars, the film was massively successful. It became the highest-grossing film of the year. Both Spielberg and Lucas were hesitant in casting Ford in the beginning, according to Howard Kazanjian in his book A Producer's Life. 33. Lucas's reasons were due to having already worked with him on both American Graffiti and Star Wars. Lucas relented after Tom Selleck was unable to accept and Spielberg due to the same and seeing his performance in The Empire Strikes Back. Ford went on to reprise the role throughout the rest of the decade in the prequel Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, 1984, and the sequel Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, 1989. During the June 1983 filming of Temple of Doom in London, Ford herniated a disc in his back. The 40-year-old actor was forced to fly back to Los Angeles for surgery and returned 6 weeks later. 34. Following his leading man success as Indiana Jones, Ford played Rick Deckard in Ridley Scott's dystopian science fiction film Blade Runner, 1982. Compared to his experiences on the Star Wars and Indiana Jones films, Ford had a difficult time with the production. He recalled to Vanity Fair, "It was a long slog. I didn't really find it that physically difficult, I thought it was mentally difficult." Ford and Scott also had differing views on the nature of his character, Deckard, that persist decades later. 35. While not initially a success, Blade Runner became a cult classic and one of Ford's most highly regarded films. 36. Ford proved his versatility throughout the 1980s with dramatic parts in films such as Witness, 1985, The Mosquito Coast, 1986, and Frantic, 1988, as well as the romantic male lead opposite Melanie Griffith and Sigourney Weaver in the comedy drama Working Girl, 1988. Witness and The Mosquito Coast allowed Ford to explore his potential as a dramatic actor, and both performances were widely acclaimed. 37-38. Ford later recalled that working with director Peter Weir on Witness and The Mosquito Coast were two of the best experiences of his career. 39. In late 1990,